Welcome. We will start the DRB meeting. Today's agenda is we have some continuations. Our first item to discuss will be a request by Marjorie B. Hunt Living Trust, Martha Prince, for a final plat review for a 2-lot residential subdivision located at Old Road Extension in the Village Zoning District. And then we will have a discussion that we continue to today on a preliminary review of a request by the DRB by VRMT4 for a preliminary plat review for a 9-lot residential PUD open space with phased development proposed. This property is located at 91 Governor Peck Road in the rural agricultural residential zoning district. And then we're going to approve the minutes from January 25th. This proceeding will be conducted in an orderly manner consistent with the DRB's rules of procedure. Written copies of the rules of procedure are available, but we'll walk you through the process. You don't need a copy to participate. First thing I'm going to ask is there been any disclosure of any conflict of interest or ex parte communication from board members on the items today?
Yes, I'll be recusing for the Hunt application.
Okay.
And I will be recusing myself for the Governor Peck one.
Okay, how about you, Bed?
No.
Okay, and right. Thank you. I'm going to then read to you the information about interested parties, and then I will swear people in. So, interested parties are those who, under Vermont law, have the right to appeal an act or decision of the Jericho zoning administrator, the DRB. These persons include the applicant, or if the applicant does not own the property, the person owning title to the property, a person owning or occupying property in the immediate neighborhood of a property that is the subject of any zoning decision or act who can demonstrate a physical or environmental impact on the person's interest under the criteria reviewed, and who alleges that the decision or act, if confirmed, will violate the municipal plan or bylaw. And then any 10 persons, either voters or landowners, who by signed petition to the DRB allege that the decision or act, if confirmed, will violate the municipal plan or bylaw. Petitioners must designate one person to serve as representative. Though many people, members of the public, may be interested in a zoning permit application, only those people who are statutorily defined as interested persons may appeal a decision of the zoning officer or DRB. If an interested person fails to make a timely appeal, they are bound by that decision. You must participate in the hearing to protect your appeal rights. Only those interested persons who have participated in a DRB proceeding may appeal a decision re-entered in that proceeding in environmental court. Pursuant to state statute, participation consists of offering through oral or written testimony, evidence, or a statement of concern related to the subject of the proceeding. If there were to be an appeal of the work we do today, DRB does not determine who is an interested person. That is the part of the appeal process. But we do need to establish who participated. To help with that, we ask you two things. Please sign in the sign-in sheet. And if you are participating in a video, provide your contact information in the meeting chat or by email to zoning administrator Chris here. Second, speaking in the hearing, please tell us your name loud and clear so that we can record it in the meeting minutes. So this is a quasi judicial hearing, so all those that intend to speak must be sworn in. I will read the oath. Those who are here, please say I do. Those participating remotely are assumed to be sworn in. So I'll give the oath, and then you say, I hereby swear that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
All right, thank you very much. So our first item tonight is a request by the Hunt Living Trust for 2-lot subdivision. Who's going to be speaking to this?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good to see you again. I'm Ron Rajetsky, representing the Hunt Living Trust. We met a little while back and we had been directed to submit additional documents for clarification. And we did that with Chris's excellent help. We get checked off the list, and I think we're caught up with where you all had left it. We're here to see if there's any other questions and maybe go over the current site plan. That was the original site plan.
No, it's the amended one.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
very similar to the original one with those amendments. Okay, so when you asked about the regraded road off the end of the class 3, we marked the class 3 where it ends, and then we marked where the shared portion of the access ends as well, which is down where the driveway split apart. And that's where the 30-foot radius was put in for fire turning movements. So there is a newer plan, I think, that was just sent out that showed a proposed culvert question, because Chris had mentioned about a culvert maybe crossing the proposed driveway, sort of in the area that P from the proposed, the first P. I don't know if you had that. That was emailed out yesterday, I think. So that's one of the questions Chris brought up, was about stormwater coming up on the proposed driveways access. The state permit's been issued for wastewater water supply yesterday or the day before. None of the property lines have changed. We submitted a draft deed and a draft road agreement. So I think that was the end of the list from the last hearing.
We had a fire department request. Do we have a statement?
We have a statement saying, go to the DRB. So,
The fire department was not going to offer comments and said anything that is involved with this project should meet the town public works specs.
so that's what we did. Yeah.
Again, appreciate the plan. I did take a quick look at it. 10% is fine, and everything looks good. We really appreciate you following through that. I just have, and again, it's clear now, the road and so on. I just have one question. You've got on it a 57 by 60 easement to be granted to the town of Jericho for a turnaround. But it's on a Troutier's property. And this is an application for you, so are they aware that they're going to have to give an easement to the town, or?
We call that the square as a nickname.
Yep.
So the square was part of the Troutier's survey plat. That's why it's there. It's nothing to do with this project, but that was,
Okay.
you
so
already
it's existing.
reviewed that in your prior.
Okay, so it's an existing one. Okay.
That's all prior,
Perfect. That answers the question.
reviewed and approved, so to speak.
Yeah. Again, if it was existing, sometimes we see a book and page of when it was, but it just looked proposed, but that.
As far as I know, you're absolutely correct. The subdivision plat that was filed for the Troutier 2-lot subdivision included the square with a dedication offered to the town of
Okay.
Jericho, and that is still pending.
Okay.
The acceptance of that is still pending. So that's your book and page. That's not there.
Okay. Okay.
Where are we on the driveway agreement?
The driveway agreement's been drafted, and that basically deals with the shared portion within the town right away, because there's individual driveway that's coming in from the proposed lot, and then you take a left and go back up to the class 3. So anything within the Jericho or road right away is anything that's used by the parties is going to be shared in a prorated equal manner. That's the draft language. So it's basically anything outside of the class 3 from the northern turnaround area, I guess you want to call it, that's just north of the project, down the hill to where the driveway's split
This
up.
area up here.
Yeah, that's the end of the class 3.
I think there was a request last time about any further plans for subdividing or.
Sounds back.
there any future subdivision restrictions for this property?
No.
And the other item we had was a 60-foot easement, southern boundary, possible access to the rest of the hunt parcel. Is that going to happen?
No, that's not, that was never on the plans. There was a concern that one might be there, I think, but there isn't one
There is no, and where is the hunt parcel again?
surrounding,
Everything
basically,
around it.
south and west
So the access to the hunt parcel is,
on our road still.
Yeah, they still have frontage on it and so on access. So this is Hunt around here.
yeah,
If they want to, they can come up here. They have the opportunity for other spots.
Goes all the way to the river.
or they can access from you. Okay. Chris, do you have anything else you want to cover?
Now they got, the draft sheet was provided, was reviewed. It's been by the town attorney, and that's fine. The radiuses meet the public works specs, and they know the sort of punch list items. They did contact, excuse me, the advisory committees. The Conservation Commission really had no comment to provide just because the nature of the application. And we didn't obviously hear anything from the fire department. The Energy Commission or Affordable Housing, they did not respond. I just think because it's one lot, the nature of the ask. And I do know that the applicant contacted the Trails Committee, and I don't believe they responded. Because
I haven't,
yeah, but no,
No,
they
I don't think so.
never responded to you guys. Okay,
No.
so the applicant did what they were asked, and
And we had a request, I think, for the septic line
Yep.
or
Yeah,
the
the shield, and that's gone too.
so the shield.
they do have their wastewater permit definition for the lot.
Okay. Ben, do you have anything?
I don't know.
Okay. Anything else? Then we'll go to public comment. Is there any public comment on this application? Please. Stand up. Yeah.
Okay, my name is Andrew Chardane. I am an abutting neighbor. One of the, I can't, I don't know if I'm on lot 2. I think I'm lot 2. You can see the plot. I'm representing Kristen and I were the owners of lot 2, and Ed and Joanne who are here this evening, and they are the owners of lot 1. I just want to run down a few quick items. I just want to say that the questions that we posed last meeting were addressed also offline by the applicant, and appreciate them following up with us to make us aware of what the answers to those questions were regarding the 60-foot right of way, regarding future subdivisions. Those questions were answered for us. Regarding the turnaround, we just wanted to make a comment. We have not seen prior to the hearing this revised plat. So we appreciate seeing this and just want to let the applicants know that we are open to coordinating the driveway turnaround such that that can accommodate all of the fire department regulations for radius as it pertains, and other trucks that would need to turn around adequately between the 3 driveways. So I think that as shown here, we're headed in that direction. Just on our behalf, just want to confirm that we had, as a lot 1 and 2, given our consent for the draft agreement for the shared maintenance of the shared driveway. We had just let the applicant know that we were requesting that the DRB and that the town attorney review the proposed agreement and provide any feedback before we finalize it, especially given the fact that the shared driveway is also on the town right of way. So we just wanted to make sure if there was any feedback that we incorporated that. And then I think that was all that we had for the DRB tonight. So that's all I got.
Okay. So the, I guess the other question then is when would that be ready to review?
The draft agreement,
Or the, I mean,
well, the draft agreement is, yeah, the draft agreement is done. I think the slight difference that probably not used to in public hearing reviews for this kind of project is that the shared agreement overlaps the public highway.
Yeah,
So we have no direct control over the users of that road. It could be the public, it could be snowmobiles, it could be the 3 homes, it could be whoever, walkers or whatever. It's a public highway. So the idea behind the road agreement is specifically to deal with the common sense approach of trying to get 3 parties to agree on how to split a plow bill. Yeah, basically. What Andrew just said was there's work to be done with the construction that has to come up to what the plan said for the fire trucks turning around and doing all that stuff that they have to do by that plan that's proposed. So that's a little bit different than I think a subdivider coming in that has control over all the lots and able to say, here is your road agreement and you have to sign this. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in the sense of the good spirit that Andrew was talking about, we can only get to the draft agreement at this point. And what I mean by that is that the draft agreement, even if the best intentions fail, let's say one of the 3 parties simply says, no, I do not want to sign that agreement. It's a hard legal position to be in because the proposed lot comes onto a town highway. Way different than what you usually would see with the shared agreement. So again, the best intentions, we got to the point that we could get to, which is a standard draft agreement that says everybody pays a prorated share. It's really not that complicated. They happen all the time in any kind of shared maintenance, except for the fact that it's on top of a public highway where the select board actually controls. The select board will not enter into a private road agreement. They should not actually enter into a private road agreement. They have their authority under Title 19 to control the use of the road. And that is just not going to be they're not a 4th party. There's going to be 3 parties to the road agreement dealing with plowing cost and gravel costs. The town select board will have their own Title 19 responsibilities, but they're not going to mix. The towns would not participate in private road agreements.
No, I didn't think they would, but again, it's a class 4 road. So typically with a class 4 road, the town has zilch for responsibility. So basically, the town can just basically refer back to, you have access over this. So it comes down to that, as you said, as long as the 3 parties come to a financial agreement.
Yep.
It's
Yep. So that's the intention, that you have the draft agreement right now. I'm sure that there'll be back and forth a little bit in that, in the terms and, what about this, what about that, and those can be worked out between the 3 parties. In the regarding the select board, they should, on class 4s, only have their statutory requirements, which is really just culverts and MRGP compliance. They're not totally exempt from responsibilities. And they'll continue to do that. And that road is probably the best section of Orr Road as of yesterday. So that's probably going to be, a good road for a long time. And the neighbors are all going to live there very nicely and make their splits on the bill and move forward. It's not it doesn't need town attorney review. It doesn't need select board review. The select board is probably going to strongly recommend that the neighbors play nice, so to speak, and get that thing written down so any future owners know what the rules are. But I wouldn't advise my select board to get involved with a private road agreement.
I would.
Or even review it, because it's totally a private deal between 3 landowners.
Well, keep in mind that if there is any attorney, I'm not speaking for the town attorney, but attorney can also review it to make sure that it's not putting the town liable. Okay, so that's probably the only part of the attorney will have in regards to that. So the big question is Chris, how do you feel about conditioning this with having that satisfied?
The town attorney reviewing from a liability standpoint?
No, a condition of approval for this. This is the last hitch.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable that we can do a condition and this can be satisfied?
For the maintenance agreement?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I think that's fine because basically it needs to, it can be conditioned that the three signature, parcels involved.
Yeah.
Sign it and then it gets filed in the land records within the 180 days that the plat needs to be filed and all that sort of stuff.
So if it's a carte blanche, quick look by the town attorney,
Yep.
it is typical standard or what.
But be careful with the condition. So I'll clarify. So if the DRB issues a permit with a condition to have the town attorney review and offer comment on a draft road agreement from the perspective of the municipality's liability level, that is perfectly fine. And I think all three parties would take that into consideration and clean it up if there was any issues with language. Having a permit condition that says all three parties must agree and sign and record the maintenance agreement within 180 days is totally not acceptable. And the reason I say that is because we could have three parties that are all being forced to sign a road agreement to affect a subdivision, which has the 180-day clock ticking on it, and not sign as one of the three parties not sign. And it would null and void the subdivision.
That's a possibility.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm saying we'll totally consent to having the town attorney review it. We'll tweak it up, make sure it's all acceptable to the select board as far as a liability concern. But we also may not have that road agreement signed until the lot sells, which may not be for 10 years. And that's when the road agreement would have to be in place at the transfer of that time.
What do you mean the lot sells? I guess how many people are involved in this agreement? Three.
Three landowners,
Okay, which are Trotter,
Jardine,
Jardine, and
the new owner.
the new owner.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be the new owner, it can be the current owner can sign that. Right?
It could be. The necessity of it doesn't happen until the transfer of that lot, and putting the condition on the 180 days is a problem. That's a legal maneuver problem.
I don't think we have to condition that for 180 days. It's just that.
Well, how
Well,
about,
eligible for 180 days, so basically that's when the plat needs to be filed and we can put the whole thing to bed.
Yeah.
So
So again, if the current owner who's using that land, whether the subdivision goes or not, they're the one utilizing the land. I'm not gonna, attorney can look at it, but I don't think that's gonna be a problem.
well, how about have the attorney look at that issue that I just raised?
Again, that's probably where they want to look at it. And Chris can provide that feedback.
Having the wrong condition on that could give one of the parties a yes or no on the permit.
They can control the whole thing. Yes, understood.
And that's what I'm concerned about.
Yep.
Not that it's gonna happen, because we're all going into this with best intentions. So if the town attorney wants to review that and say, advise on the final wording of a decision regarding all this, that would be fine too.
Yep.
As long as that risk is alleviated. Somehow. And maybe the road agreement's signed, as soon as possible, maybe it's whatever, but having that out there is concerning.
Okay.
Seems like we have one more piece of public comment.
Oh, I just wanted to,
Chad will come
I'm
up and
Marjorie
introduce
Friend.
himself.
Yeah, okay.
You should come up and
Get to the mic.
so I'm Martha Prince. I'm actually the trustee, or so to speak, the owner of this property. It's our intention that we do have a purchaser to build a single family home in this. There has been a shared maintenance agreement that has gone back and forth that we've kind of made sure that this potential purchaser could agree to. And also I've sent it back and forth to Ed and Andrew. And Melanie, my daughter, and our attorneys have gone back and forth, and, Andrew would make comment. So we've passed this back and forth to come to like kind of a resolve to an end place of where it should be. And it seems like everybody agreed. The thing is that I have to sell this lot of land. I'm bound as a trustee for my beneficiaries that I have to do something with this piece of land.
Let me understand this. So right now, let's ignore this breaking out of this lot 3. Let's ignore it. Okay, let's just say owns all the land still there. So that overall, the overall part, the remaining lands, whatever acre it is, you have that, and you have the two others. So you still have, even when Cal carving this off, you have three people in an agreement, right?
Correct.
Correct. So again, if the agreement's between you three parties and you sell it, that's part of the land. That agreement just
Correct.
goes from the deed that you have now or that agreement
Mhm.
with the next lot. So I
Right.
don't think there's a time frame on that. Once it's set to that parcel, no matter how big it is, it's set to that area, it'll run with it. That's the premise that I'm looking at on this. You know,
No, I think you're right. You're
Right.
correct. You're correct in that. The specific issue is making a permit condition that we have to comply with
Well,
within
we
180 days.
we can talk about that.
Yeah, it's a legal-ish type of area that is really just a sequencing of the process. So
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you understood that, yeah, it was still going to be in the hunt name for a short period of time and that we had talked to the potential buyers. And so all of this agreement, we've been trying to make it so that they were aware and that they agreed to, because I, as the owner of it right now, can't say, well, Ed and Joanne and Andrew, do you want your snow plowed at 6 inches or do you want it plowed at 12 inches? Or, and the other thing is, I'm not going to use that access. I mean, it's not like I'm going to personally, the Hunt Trust is not going to use that road from up there. I go up from my house on Lee River Road and go up right through the meadow and go right up to it. So it's not that I'm going to actually be using that, but I just wanted you to know that, you know, this is going to be in the Hunt Trust for a short period of time, and the shorter the better because of being the trustee and the beneficiaries. So this 180 days.
Buyers are involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and helping draft stuff. You know.
Yeah, and so they're aware and they've got like this draft agreement. I mean, so we've definitely given it to them and they've made their comments and whatever. And so far they're agreeing that they would be fine with the agreement that Melanie and our attorneys have done. And we've sent it over to Ed and Joanne and to Andrew. And the last time they kind of threw it back and said, no, we're not going to sign this. We need to have the town attorney, you know, take a look at it or whatever. So I need to make sure that everybody, I don't see everybody, they're all good people, you know, and I don't think that anybody's going to have a bit of issue on any of it. But I don't want somebody being able to hold me up for 180 days when I have a purchaser that's ready to do a purchase and sales agreement that's all drawn out with just minor changes in this on here. I don't want that being held out, and they certainly would like to start doing prep for the land to build their home this summer. So that's why I don't want anybody to be able to say, well, I don't like it because, you know, I've got a piece of gravel over here, or I've got this or that. I want it so that the new folks can have this and let them agree. You know, I would let my driveway fill up with 8 inches of snow or 9 inches of snow, and I wouldn't care a bit, you know, where I can't tell the possible new owners or Ed and Joanne or Andrew when how deep their snow needs to be before a plow truck comes in. Or I can't say, oh, well, you've got summer tires on your car and you're saying you want gravel. You know, I can't speak for the next people who are going to own that. And that's why we've involved them in all of this agreement, along with the attorney, to make sure that those parties that are going to use it are all in agreement. Has nothing to do with me. You know, I'm not going to own it long enough to really make a difference.
Okay.
Please don't ask me to plow snow tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions?
See if there's anybody in the remote. If anybody remote's wants to participate, you gotta raise your hand so we can let you in, otherwise you will not participate. Okay, it doesn't look like it.
Thank you very much. In the future, we'll call it Amazon off in the people driveways. Or where their drone lands or whatever. Have a drone landing pad.
Do you feel like you have enough?
I think so.
To vote?
I mean, well, we closed the public hearing, so
Oh, did we?
I don't know. You said thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I didn't know what usually.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything else. I mean, there's been testimony, they don't want to own it very long. It doesn't seem like it should be a big hill to get over to get an agreement signed.
Are we,
Hey, Phil, come on in.
after the next hearing? You want it? So I gotta stay around.
Or you can just log in.
I'll go. I'll send it back.
It's gonna be a while.
sit here, Phil?
Go eat, go see your dog. No.
It's my, yeah, let's move me over.
Phil?
Hey,
Nice. Nice.
I have to wear it now. I can't wear it during the playoffs.
It won't make any difference. You know that.
That's exactly why. I get a little tired of. Actually, maybe I will go over there because I didn't plug in. Thanks. Okay, matters.
Just wait a minute here to get our set place here.
Yeah, isn't it great? Really hoping to get this year, but.
Up to the.
I don't know what we want to start with.
This is the density plan.
This is
that
the
we
first
sent.
one yeah. This is what you sent today.
Okay, yeah, and I have paper copies of it.
Yeah, then I printed the original that had all the topo, and then I printed this. And
I brought a few. Want to hand out? I think it's easier to see those 11x17s than something like,
I'm sorry, keep your talking, I couldn't hear you.
I was just, Joe brought 11x17s of the plan you have up on the screen, and I think it would be easier to see in some cases the
They've
handheld
got
version.
those as well.
All right.
Oh, you printed those out too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh, great.
That's great.
Exhibit
I
6.
pre-hole punched mine. Did you do those for those guys?
No, I didn't know. You don't punch it.
Didn't hurt.
I know. There's a fine line between dork and nerd. to see.
All right.
Yes, what can,
Welcome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the time.
You bet.
So you want to give a little intro, Chris, as to what we're going to try.
Okay, this is a continuation of 91 Governor Peck, the PUD request. What we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be focusing, the overall project intention is for a 17 lot PUD on 132 acres plus property. And tonight, the intent is to go over two key components of the application, which is basically the allowed density and a density bonus to derive a number. And then we'll probably continue the hearing so we can move into the details of the design and all the other components of the regulations. Because this will be a project that will be built over the years and reviewed over the years. It will receive an overall approval for the allowed density and the number of lots through this process of preliminary and final. And essentially, they'll be coming in for future phases at certain points in time that they see fit. So I think that kind of covers it.
Yeah, I think so.
Pretty much. Really, the focus tonight is they can talk of the method for regards to how density gets calculated for the DRB. They can explain, you can ask questions, all that sort of stuff. They can explain to you with regards to the density bonus. And then we're probably gonna sort of cap it at that point, in part just because instead of going through a full-blown application and then deciding after the fact, well, you only get this number of units, we're gonna vet that first as a first step, and then get into the details of stormwater, soil erosion, all those other components. So that's the intent.
Right.
So, take it away.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, so Chris laid it out really well. We met with Chris.
Introduce yourselves too.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm John Grenier from Grenier Engineering. I'm representing my client, VRMT4, and Joe
I'm
Green.
Joe Green and my partners Pam, Amanda and Henry. We are VRMT4 still.
We appreciate the time Chris met with us earlier in the week to go through interpretations of the zoning, help me, I understand, how Jericho interprets density and PUDs and work through the finities of that. And that was really helpful. And it helped us drive towards a map to present to you today. This will be a major subdivision, anything over 3 lots, and which requires a PUD in the town of Jericho. So we'll be following the PUD regulations. We're working with 132.7 acres. And so what we're presenting to you today is a calculation for density. How many lots or homes can we build on this property? And from there, we will tailor our future submittals to you folks in a much more concise way of what we plan to build and when, and the full engineering that you would see in any subdivision, stormwater, the septic systems, the wells, the road grades, and all that. But before we get there, we kind of want to figure out, working with you folks, about what is the sideboards on the project, and then work backwards from there. Like I said, Chris met with us and we discussed the 2 ways you calculate density in Jericho. The first is to take your total acreage, take 25% off the top, and then divide by the zoning district. So we did that one way. The second way is a little bit different, where you provide a density plan for the DRB to review. And what you do in that case is you take the total acreage that you have and divide by the zoning density district minimum lot size, which in this zone is 10 acres. So we take 132.7 divided by 10, we get 13 lots. What this plan shows to you is how a mocked up 13 lot, 10 acres per lot subdivision would look. That's required to prove to the DRB that 13 structures do fit on this property. We're not asking for something that isn't, is make-believe or not appropriate in any way. And so from that plan, we are able to show that the lot can in fact be broken up to 13 10-acre lots. There's a legitimate site on each lot. We would meet all the zoning setbacks. We would meet the lot sizes. We meet the road frontage requirements. We show a legitimate designed road to the lots. We show the restrictions in your zoning regulations, the slopes over 25%. We show the forested riparian areas. We show streams and we show wetlands and other restrictive features. Floodplain, the existing road, Governor Peck Road. And so working through this with Chris, we added more detail to this map than the previous application. We show better defined, for example, I don't believe the last plan we issued showed zoning setbacks, or if we did, we didn't show them clearly. So I think this is a better map, and I think it makes our case in conformance with the zoning regulations. And reviewing that with Chris, he really helped us nail down what you guys are used to seeing and what information we can provide. And I guess that's where I'll leave it for now. Like, it's as an opening of our discussion of our request for using the density plan to establish a base density of 13 lots.
And we can go through lot by lot if you'd like, if you have questions on those.
One of the requirements is that I will say, and I didn't label it on here, is there's obviously a grayed out area, which is a typical house. And around that is a dotted box. That dotted box around each house is 10,000 square feet of buildable area, which is one of the requirements. So I just to clarify, that's what that box is.
What is that definition?
The,
What is the,
Under 13.7.2, one of the sub-criteria says that each lot must demonstrate a minimum of 10,000 square feet of contiguous buildable area. So what we're trying to represent is each lot has that capacity of 10,000 square feet of contiguous buildable area.
and that, is there a, sorry, I should know this, but is there a slope requirement or what's that?
So
What's the
within,
definition of buildable area?
well, unfortunately, I think your regulations have a definition of buildable area. We did go to the definitions and we looked for that as well. And obviously, John can speak to that in more detail, but obviously we view that as an area that doesn't require excessive cutting or fill to make it buildable. I mean, it doesn't mean that we're not touching slopes or,
right,
but you know,
in other, like, you're not building in the middle of the stream, you're not building in the middle of a class 2 wetland, you're not building in the floodplain.
wetlands are riparian buffers.
Yeah, and like the only criteria on 25% slopes in your rules is that it should be, you make an effort to avoid it. And in this case, the map as presented for you, this kind of mustardy yellow color is anything shaded that color is over 25%. And so you can see that there are stretches of this property essentially down the center where it's a long continuous slope of over 25%. That would not be an appropriate house site. So we've tried to center all of these houses in a white zone, which is relatively flat, definitely less than 25%. There are little flecks of areas around the edges on some of them. But if you
Lot
look,
2 looks like that
yeah, like
buildable
there,
area is mostly greater than 25% slope.
the thing that's a little tricky about that is that it's on kind of a domed mound. And so the very top of it is flat and buildable. And what I would do as the engineer on that would do some earthwork to create a little bit flatter house site to bump out around the house. It's not a huge amount of grading to achieve that. And it's not, you'll see that area is very speckled. So it's like a little bit of white, a little bit of red, I'm sorry, a little bit of yellow. And so it's kind of undulating topography. In general, the area where the house site is, in our opinion, is buildable. So,
Right, and I think to be clear, the 10,000 square feet isn't intended to be a built area. It's intended to be a location where a house could be sited. So 10,000 square foot footprint is obviously a substantial footprint. So I think what it means is that within a parcel, you need to be able to find an appropriate place to site a house and then obviously accommodate things like septic. So the box, while it's 10,000 square feet, is not the full build out. It's an area within the lot where you could site a house. And in lot 2, for example, we have an indication of a driveway, I guess you can call it, just a little, there you go, which is at grade with the road coming in. So that plateau, as John said, is at the same elevation. So, and honestly, that footprint of that house, I think I said this before, that represents a 2,500 square foot house with a 2-car garage on it. So we just put a big footprint just to kind of put it to scale. But if somebody put 1,000 square foot house there, obviously it'd be half that size.
So lot 5, it looks like the house site is actually on the road.
where's lot 5? Lot 5 out at the end.
No,
Cul-de-sac is- There's a
Okay, I'm sorry,
log,
the road-
yeah.
the road doesn't
There's an
go through.
existing.
that happens to be,
logging road.
that happens to be the existing logging road that continues through.
Okay,
So
I didn't realize the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
No, You're right,
that's
that's how
fine.
it looks.
So it's fine.
And what is the pink dotting on lot 3?
So that's called the wildlife road crossing area. And that's that area in the natural resource overlay map that isn't a
Wow.
prohibition. It obviously just, you don't want people building fences around property lines. So it doesn't affect the wildlife crossing. So the pink dotties seem to take over a lot of the space, but that's just from your overlay map.
Can I, since we're focused on permitted density bonus, I'd like to just ask the question about the written testimony that came in today about the property lot lines. And regarding the sale of the property, and I don't know if this is a question for you, Chris, but also for you.
Yeah.
If this is not something that's been resolved, how can we even make a determination on this?
So look, you guys have closed on the property, right?
Over a year ago.
Yeah, and you have, and deeds have been transferred, right?
Yes,
So
over a
you
year
have,
ago.
and you're getting tax bills.
Yes.
Okay, so
So we should.
whether that's a disgruntled seller, that's between private property owners. It's, you know, I mean, it's a little bit of a sticky wicket. But you're not in court, litigation. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So because of those things, we're presented an application from an owner. And, people can write whatever they want to write. We're still, if we can believe in the Hubble telescope, but we can't believe in an election. We got issues, so.
Yep. No,
So,
that answers my question.
I
and
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Towards that end, I guess, just for the sake of clarification, we had no time to respond to this either, but we did contact our attorney and they asked us to respectfully request that entry doesn't be put into the record on our application for that very reason. And I could read words, but the submission was specifically requesting to be added to our record for this application. And our legal team is saying, we're requesting that it doesn't get added for those specific reasons. So.
right, we'll have your, whatever your attorneys, have them send to me because I've already contacted the town attorney to see the legitimacy of everything that's been provided,
That's great.
just to make sure that.
Appreciate it.
We'll forward everything to you and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Chris is advising us that, hey, the 132.7 number is the one we're using.
It is.
Yeah, thanks.
The roads you have here, these roads, are there any deviations to the town road spec?
No, we have allowed for and designed the road up to the upper plateau to be not more than 10%. And we have a 24-foot wide road with a 2-foot shoulder. And, further on in the design process, I'm happy to provide a profile and cut and fill analysis if required. Not for this. The lower road is on an existing roadbed and I've checked the topography and its natural topography doesn't exceed the 10% town road requirement. So what we'd be doing is if we ever actually built that stretch of road, we would just widen the road base, add gravel and continue on.
Right. But to be clear, this plan is just a mock-up to get density. This is not a plan that's ever going to be built. But the road itself is based on that town spec of 24-foot wide. This
We're just
snaky looking
We're
road.
trying to show feasibility.
Exactly,
Feasibility.
We can meet your specification without a
And
problem.
that we're not asking for. And in terms of pull-offs for fire and passing, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
24 feet wide and
And the cul-de-sacs are sized for
yeah,
large apparatus and plow trucks and things like that.
yeah, we designed it for I don't know if Jericho has one. We designed it for a ladder truck, fire truck, ladder truck. Okay, well, never mind. I stopped talking.
I think we allow buildings that tall in Jericho.
Okay. Just alienate the whole fire department.
I know.
Jeff, I had a clarifying question.
Yes.
Was it stated earlier that they were unable to find a definition of buildable land?
Buildable, contiguous buildable area, I believe, Ben, was
There is a definition that basically talks about buildable.
Okay.
And
I mean, it does say buildable land,
yeah, so
101372 in
Definition on page 3 for buildable land.
so
right.
So that gives you so that's the marker you and John talked to that a little bit. It's not in the, we just need to make sure where you're proposing the buildable site, the lot and the buildable site, that it's not in what's not allowed in buildable land.
Right. Yeah, we're only going to present to you something that's appropriate. So we tried to show
this
that in
is-
our submission.
This instance, Ben, if for vetting this, if lot 4, because that's what number I can make out of, for some reason that was in the river overlay or or something like that, that house site wouldn't constitute a buildable lot. You know, if they found another site within lot 4 that was outside of the river overlay, then lot 4 would be, you know, buildable. Does that make sense?
Say that again? Sorry.
So we're talking buildable land, right? 10,000
Yeah.
square feet of, you know, area. So buildable land basically talks of, essentially tells you what it's not. Buildable land is not in the wetlands, not in these things. So if they presented something that had a buildable site that was in one of those, then that would disqualify it essentially. But if they were able to move the house site to outside of what's not allowed, then it could be considered. So I would, you know, we're assuming that what they're showing, we had testimony that they didn't put it in any of those areas. So what we're seeing from a density plan standpoint, from a conventional subdivision, is these are where they're showing you where they could put their 13 lots. And that it meets the sub criteria A through H of 10-13-7-2.
So question on the buildable land. I know that the Conservation Committee has advised in their report about they've weighed in on wetlands, let's say, or the potential for a vernal pool to be in the wetland that's been identified as a class 2. Is when it says under buildable land that all land outside of the river overlay district, wetlands overlay district, and then at the end vernal pools plus 100-foot buffer, does that have to be per what is currently in the overlay, or would it be whatever is identified by a survey, let's say, of a wetland ecologist?
We go by the information that we have available to us.
Hmm.
And so so it's the information that we have available to us, you know, in the office. And so those are the overlay districts that, you know, we have the demarcation. So if a wetlands consultant disagreed with those,
Mhm.
that's a different discussion.
Got it.
So the area delineated here as a wetland is not part of the wetland overlay district.
No, we have, bear with me 1 second.
The wetlands that we have shown along, which are basically wetlands following the stream course that parallels Governor Peck, are right off the ANR advisory layer
Sure.
atlas.
So what this represents here, this is the, let's see if I can pull up the. Ben, are you saying this plan?
I do see a plan, yes.
Okay. So what this represents here is, see this green outline?
Yep.
That's the wetland overlay area that we have. The dark purple is basically riparian from the natural resource. The crosshatch is the river overlay. And this pink is basically the road crossing.
Yep.
So, and this light blue is essentially the outline of the property. So we can take this information plus the information that they provided us, and we can get a fairly decent idea as to where the lots, you know, where the access, maybe this line through here, I'm assuming is probably the roadway.
The trail.
The trail area. That they
Yeah.
mentioned, yeah.
Yeah. And then John did try to show that on this plan. So like the greenish color
Yeah, I didn't pick
is the same
color,
as the
sorry.
dark purple color, if
Yep.
you will. And then what's not shown on here is the steep slopes, of course, but down below is it's got little tick marks, little green tick marks that represent the wetlands. And then there's a dark purple line that represents the floodplain.
Correct.
So it traces that. So yeah, we were very careful about making sure we had buildable lots outside of any of those natural resource areas.
And we added the the usual in our request of a 50-foot buffer to the wetland. It's not just the wetland edge, it includes the 50-foot buffer. So we're outside the buffer as well.
And Phil, if you were asking about the one up top that we discovered, the
No,
wetland, yeah,
The
so
one on lot 10.
that was one that we found when we did the survey with our environmental expert, and it wasn't on the state maps. So that's why it's mapped here,
Yeah.
plus the 50-foot buffer, as John said, so.
And it was vetted by
The
a
state.
representative of the Agency of Natural Resources. So it's not just our private consultants. The state has confirmed that delineation as well.
The entrance coming across the wetlands.
We reviewed that with them as well. You are generally allowed to use existing stream crossings and wetlands crossings. And we are going to use the same curb cut, modify the road a little bit by adding some fill to adjust grades. But if generally we're on the same path, then we're allowed to do that.
You're allowed to widen.
So when you just mentioned your consultant that you had, there was a wetland that was identified on lot 10. Did they survey the entire property?
Yeah,
No.
well, I'm sorry, the whole upper plateau that we described as phase one, because again, we're focusing on all the criteria for that phase, knowing that when we come back down the road for whatever future phases there may be, we'll have to do the exact same exercise in these other areas. So
Could I make the argument that if that's unknown, that how could we know if the lot is buildable if they're not identified on the entire property based on how you're setting up all 13 proposed?
Well, again, I think in the spirit of this density plan and trying not to confuse what we're actually going to build versus what this is trying to get to, the density plan and the intent of the subsections of the phase plan is to show you, is it plausible? It certainly doesn't indicate for a second that if we went and turned over every leaf, we might find something that's not reflected on the state maps. But as Chris and John have said, that's the best information we have to go by when trying to create a density plan.
Gotcha. Okay.
I guess I'm still a little hung up on lot 10 because it would seem to me that the wetland and the buffer makes lot 10, that takes away from the buildable land.
It does take away, like I can't put that house site in the wetland or the buffer,
Right.
but I have an ocean, an ocean of land to build around that and not touch or to hurt that
Yeah,
wetland in
I'm
any way.
just, I guess I'm not clear on whether that has been taken out of the 10 acres in terms of doing the calculation.
No.
No,
Okay.
yeah, no, that wouldn't, no, yeah.
Yeah, those resources can reside on a lot. You just
That-
can't put a
that's all I have.
buildable
I just
area in
wanted
it,
to
right?
make
Yeah,
sure
no, that's a
that's
good
the case.
question.
Thank you.
Great question.
Yeah.
So what's intended here for you, the board? So we look at, if we look at density calculations for PUD, as they mentioned, you take 132 acres, you reduce 25%, 33 acres, you get down to 99 acres. It's 10 acre zone that says 9 lots. But if the applicant can show that they can do, if the conventional subdivision allows for greater lots, they can show that they could do a conventional subdivision at 13. The board has the ability or discretion to raise that density up to 13. And they still have to meet all the PUD regulations with regards to 50% conserved and all those types of things. What we've got going on here is it's sort of a two-step. They ask is going from 9 to 13. And then beyond that is the density bonus request, which is allowed as well. So before we move on to that, we probably want to make sure that if you have any questions with regards to the density plan being shown from a conventional subdivision standpoint, now's the time to ask or get that information or express concerns or support or things along those lines. So, the one question I have, what are the contours are 10 foot? Yeah.
I think
Yes,
so.
they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're 10 foot, okay.
They are labeled, and I have a bigger plan if you can really read them, if that helps.
Well, I want one for the, I want one for the file. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm gonna make
Yeah.
notes on this by Ross. Second copy.
And the original density plan that was, done back in the sketch thing, looks like some of the house sites have been sort of they've been moved a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, after we met on Monday, we took a deeper dive and it was like, all right,
Right,
we can see where the sketch plan site, even though
okay.
for the most part, the lot layout is similar, we did do a little bit of massaging, so.
So basically, the plan that the board has seen previously, which I'm gonna just show you guys, that has been amended, so it's not apples to apples. And the plan that's in front of you now is the density plan to base the, your judgment on for review.
And I believe it's dated too, just for clarification, at the bottom of the drawing, there's a revision block that
Yep.
shows the current date, so.
Yep.
It's easy to tell which one is current.
This one's colored, that one's black and white.
And then there's that.
Just gonna hand
We're
this to you
looking at
now.
the January, this one says January 3rd, right?
No, you look and see where it says not for construction underneath your hand.
2/22/23 is the map we want to talk
There's a
about.
revision date. So I guess it's the. This would be up to the board if they wanted to open this section up for public comment, or if you want to move into if you don't have any further questions, then either we move into the density bonus for part of the discussion, and then open up the public hearing, or
Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and do that.
I just have another question. As part of showing with the density plan, showing these 13 lots as potential, do we also need to know, Chris, that septic can be designed on all 13 of these lots?
that's a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna sort of defer this to John, because he's, obviously, you can't have a buildable site in a building lot without septic, so.
Yes.
So,
I'm hearing yes.
whether everything's on lot 11,
Mhm.
or, there's multiple septic areas. I mean, you can pump waste a long ways.
Yeah.
So,
So hearing that, yes, and then I would ask you.
Yeah, we've investigated septic on most of the property, certainly focusing on the upper plateau where we envision phase one to be. Septic capacity isn't one of the criteria in your density plan, but fair enough. I mean, all these lots are built on a nice high dry plateau outside the floodplain. We would certainly look for good dry soil, something like, in-ground septic or a mound system. We do have quite a bit of flexibility there. If some of the lower lots were completely shot out, just given the soil wasn't good or not, as Chris said, we certainly have the ability to pump up soil, pump up septic to a few specific spots up on the upper land. So we could make septic work for these lots. I feel very confident testifying to that.
Anything else? You good? Okay, you want to talk about the
let's see,
density bonus?
see if Ben has anything, or
Ben, you have anything else on the
I'm
13
good.
lot feasibility?
I'm good, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you for that. The next discussion would be a request for a density bonus. And there are 6, check my notes.
10.13.8.
Thank you for that.
And basically, there are 8 criteria
Yes, that's what it is.
that that the DRB can look at if the applicant attempts to meet, and then obviously the DRB has the discretion to grant up to a 50% density bonus. And I could go through all the criteria, or I could just take the quick road and tell you that sub-criteria B, which says the PUD consists of structures meeting or exceeding the state of Vermont residential building energy stretch code for residential development. And when we met with the Energy Committee back in July or whatever, we had a great conversation with them, and we specifically and absolutely committed to doing that. We have our homeowners association draft covenants that also reflect that. And just to be clear, for those who don't know, the state of Vermont has a residential energy code for all new homes being built in the state of Vermont. But it also has what's called the stretch code, which goes a little bit beyond that base code. And typically that is imposed on Act 250 type projects. But in this particular case, your criteria asks for the applicant to meet that as a little bit of a incentive for obviously density bonus. So we've embraced that. We've spoken with the Energy Committee, as I said, and of course, I've said this before, but as an architect, we're committed to building sustainable homes and sustainable lands anyway, even though all we're doing is selling lots. We're drafting the covenants to try to not only support that, but also support subsection F, which speaks to including renewable resources and trying to create at least 50% of the potential's projected ongoing energy terms. So while we're not imposing that on landowners in the PUD, we're encouraging all the landowners through the homeowners association to take those initiatives as well. So I think that and item C, which speaks to open space, I think you heard us say before, not only are we setting aside the minimum 50% required open lands, when we're done, if we're fortunate to get the number of lots that were requested, when it's all said and done, the total impact of acreage to this entire parcel is 13 acres. So I know that's hard to believe, but out of 132 acres, we're actually only disturbing and developing 13 acres. And that math real quick is we have if we get 17 lots that we're requesting, we've set aside a half-acre building zone for each lot. So the maximum development area would be a half acre. So 17 times half is 9.5 acres. And then we have two roads ultimately that by their length and width, as John said, 28 feet wide with shoulders, plus the length equals about another 3 acres. So now that we're at 11.5 acres, we take out stormwater, erosion control, and some driveways. It adds another acre or two. So literally we're in the 13-acre range over a 10-year period for 17 lots. So when we talk about overall impact to this parcel, out of 132 acres, we're impacting 13, and the roads potentially arguably could be half there already because they're existing logging roads that we're following. So we looked at that as saying we're really making enough to minimize this impact on this parcel. So it results in about a 10% overall impact in a 10-year period. So out of the 8 criteria, we strongly meet 1. We're encouraging the other, and then we feel really good about the open area space really exceeding what the minimums are.
The density bonus allows a 50% request if the 13 lots were granted in the first stretch, and then 4 extra were allowed. That would represent a 30% ask, so not the full 50. Just to give you an idea of where that falls.
I'm sorry, say that again. What's the request?
So if in the first part, we talked about trying to get 13 lots with this density bonus, if you grant that, and then we would be asking for 4 additional lots as part of this density bonus.
Okay.
You're allowed to grant up to a 50% density bonus. If you'll grant us this 4, that's only a 30% bonus. So we're not rolling in here and asking for 50%. We're like, let's meet in the middle, 30, not quite half 50, but we're in the ballpark.
So let me ask about the public access to open space. Is that public at large or just members of the homeowners association?
So yes, So we met with the Trails Committee as well. We've met with the Conservation Commission. We've met with Affordable Housing. And all along the way, what we've said is we have limited control over to the public access comment because it is going to be a homeowners association, albeit we are suggesting this in our covenants. But what we've tried to do is establish a road network that, even though that's a road network for the development, when you get to the end of the road, there's a cul-de-sac that connects to the 100-foot buffer that we're proposing for the PUD, which is the common lands, which also allows access to the neighboring common lands, which, again, we haven't spoken with those developments to see if they're receptive to it, but I would assume that they are. So in an effort to work with like the Trails Committee, we've openly said, well, anybody could use that road, and if they want to ride to the end of the cul-de-sac, and then there's common land where they could get to more common land, then we would embrace the conversation with the Trails Committee when they're developing their maps, which I understand they're in the process of doing. In terms of the actual physical lots that people own, obviously, that would be a different restriction. And then in terms of the rest of the open land, there would be some, I'd say, opinion by the homeowners association as to how much of that would be deemed readily public. But right now, we know a lot of neighbors use the property, and, we're not trying to dissuade them from using it. It's a great piece of land, and it's literally, there's going to be 100 acres of land that doesn't even have a parcel on it. So if people can enjoy it, I think we support it. But right now, it's that kind of fine line where we have to write covenants for a homeowner association, and we can be somewhat permissive, but at the same time, ultimately, we're not even going to be part of this deal. And an association, obviously, sometimes they can make up their own rules over the years. So, and again, this is, as we said, this is a multi-year kind of build out. So we're looking at 8 building lots in the first 5 years. And then in 5 years, who knows? I mean, we have a concept of what who knows is, but things could change tomorrow. So
For the density bonus, they only need to meet one criteria.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
curious.
Any more questions from the board? Chris, do you have anything?
I think the only thing I'd like to hold out is if we get to the density plan, which they've shown 13 lots and that's their ask, and the board basically says, well, we really think there's only 11 lots. For argument's sake, I think that basically the applicant should ask for a density bonus that allows them up to 17 lots, and whether that's 50%.
Okay.
That number.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, just that, because if you're saying 30%, you may be leaving something on the table.
Okay.
So-
Thank you for that clarification.
So
Yeah,
basically,
that's,
your intent is not to have any more than 17 lots, and you can't exceed 50% in the density bonus. So they're, asking for a combination, I guess, of both. Just for clarity's sake, I think that would be,
that's a good point.
so.
Okay, at this point, I'll ask for any public comment. Any public comment in the room?
Yeah, it's,
Hold on, you gotta raise your hand, so I can let you on. So where are you? Let's see. Looks like you already jumped in.
He's already unmuted.
I think it was on the top.
Oh, yeah, okay, so you're, all right, why don't you introduce yourself and, so we know who's talking, please.
Go ahead.
who would you identify?
You.
Okay, this is Kurt Carter. It's not Renee Berger. My concern here is really the process, and in the zoning regulations, my understanding is you need to do a PUD and a subdivision at the same time. And it seems to me that the DRB is making an error here if they do a partial finding on the density requirement without a full subdivision plan. It's clear in the regulations, and I submitted this in my former memo to the DRB that you can't just do a partial density calculation at this point.
Do you want to? Yeah, we appreciate your point. That's why we came in and met with Chris. And to your point, when we come in for final review of the subdivision, we will be getting conceptual plan approval as well as our subdivision for the final PUD. So,
Which will be the total number of 17 lots.
right.
Right.
So in the final, we will get the subdivision, and we will also get, which is the PUD.
Right.
And we will also get the conceptual plan approval as allowed under section 1013-12, which is the partial
Phase conceptual.
phase
PUD.
conceptual PUD. So we're following that section of the rule book under the guidance of Chris.
Yeah,
And
just to tagline onto that, the subdivision regs also specifically distinguish between a minor and a major subdivision, which you guys know, and as Chris said at the beginning, because we're pursuing more than 4 lots, then it is by virtue of that definition, a major subdivision, and all major subdivisions then have to be treated as a PUD. And yes, subdivision regulations and PUD regulations have to be reviewed simultaneously, but they do parallel each other. And then once you go to PUD, that's when the density calculations kick in. So we're basically at the density calculation phase of this. And as John said, once we get to the next step of looking at the actual 8 lots we want to subdivide day one, then yes, we have to also follow subdivision criteria. So.
I would just have a further question for the DRB then. Just what is the application that's under consideration? Is it an 8-lot subdivision or a 13-lot subdivision or a 17-lot subdivision? It's not clear what the application's for.
The application is for essentially, they're asking for an 18-lot PUD with 17 residential lots in an open space through the phased PUD process.
And what's the subdivision application?
That's how it was originally warned when we began the process.
And what is the subdivision that goes with application that's going in hand with that?
The subdivision regulations basically are applied through the section 1012 and 1013 are reviewed concurrently, as well as section 11, which is development standards, will be viewed for the first phase of the project.
I guess at this point, I just have one further, question is for the DRB to take a close look at lot number 2. There's also already been some discussion on that. You take a look at that. There's a very narrow ridge there. I'm familiar with it. It's right across the street from my house. I don't believe there's any way you could get a house on that parcel. And in addition, the existing road going up at that point is, I believe I'd ask the DRB to take a look at the slope. I believe that's well in excess of 10%. Thank you.
I can answer the road. Yeah, yes, the natural topography is over 10%. We would be constructing a road using cut and fill to get under the required 10%. So
Just remembering that the density plan is not what we're proposing to build. And I'm not sure if that was clear to Mr. Carter, but it's really just to exemplify a plausible scheme of 13 10-acre building lots. And to John's point earlier, when you have 435,000 square feet, which is a 10-acre lot, finding a 10,000 square foot building lot within that, outside of all the natural resources that we talked about, and understanding that there are some topographical challenges, we feel like we've shown the ability to do that on these 10-acre lots. But these are not the lots that we're looking to permit.
Is that road on through lot 10 that's so steep now, is that really, you could build a road up Mount Rushmore with 10% if you want to switch back all the way up, but is that realistic?
this is the path that we would follow to create a less than 10% road. We're not weaving all over the, what you will see if we.
How much, is there a realistic amount of fill and cutting that you would do there? Or?
Yeah, I mean, when we move on to the second hearing that we're going to have about the construction of phase 1 of our PUD, I, a little bit prematurely, have provided a cut analysis to Chris, road profile, et cetera. And yeah, it's complete.
over 10%.
So if there, it's a reasonable cut and fill.
Yes, sir.
That's not different than what we'd see in other
Yeah.
areas. It's
Yes, sir.
not
This is the most amount.
something totally exotic. Okay. Because if it was something you would never do realistically, then that would be a different question. And then in terms of the question on that piece of property on lot 2, the realistic building lot, again, you think that that could be cutting on enough reduction of cutting down that hillside to get a 10,000 feet of square feet of reasonably buildable land up there.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that may add a little bit to the confusion is we showed a box for the most part, right? But obviously, there's nothing that says it has to be a perfect square. So 10,000 square foot could be an obtuse shape, but in this particular case, we tried to show that it was practical to think that it was in that area that's outside of our natural resources, which is what as we just determined, the buildable site is defined as.
Can I ask a question? Chris, can you move to the right side of the plan towards lot 13 where the driveway comes up? So I'm just curious, because John, I appreciate you just pointing out the cut and fill. I mean, I see the diagram and the exhibits.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because the dotted green there, is that a wetland on the neighbor's property? And I'm just, the proximity of the proposed driveway right on the property line, I see that a lot of the cut and fill that's going to happen to achieve the 10% is a lot of it is in this initial area where you have the blue, right? The 25%.
Yeah, that's
grade
what we
impact.
are infecting.
I'm just curious, without seeing road profiles, we're not there yet, but with the driveway being so close, to the neighbor's lot here, how is this going to work?
Well, you're right, we aren't there yet, but when we are there, we have moved far enough ahead in our design analysis that I will be happy to present to you in the phase 1 construction that this road works. We've reviewed it with the town highway foreman mostly about the curb cut. We've reviewed it with the fire department about the grade. Designed a road that meets the town highway standards and without encroaching on neighboring properties, without creating these massive cuts and fills that aren't sustainable to the land, huge gouges in the topography, things like that. So the real deal with this road is that there's one steep stretch of natural topography in the center. It's very flat at the top and it's very flat at the bottom. So if you do a little fill at the bottom and a little cut at the top, you can average out to be less than 10%.
So where's the cut? Where's the fill?
You want me to point it up there too? Yeah, so
The other thing too, while he's pointing that out, Andrew, is what's not reflected really here in this 2-dimensional plan is that whole wetland area. That is actually 50 to 75 feet lower than our road because the contours aren't shown here, but as this road comes up, the neighbor's property is actually down at Governor Peck Road. So there's a slope from the edge of the road down to those wetlands. So when you look at that, it gives that perception that the wetlands are right next to the road, but there's really a slope that drops off.
if you look at the contour spacing, like really the steeper section of this natural logging road is here. It's very flat here. It's very flat here. So when we come across the road, on the existing curb cut, we start to build grade in this area on this curve. So we gain a little bit here, like this topography is like 2%, but so to get some run on the hill, we'll be coming up here at like 5-6%, coming up through this stretch about 9. And then as we crest on the top of the hill, we'll be cutting out some of this land and lowering that logging road so that we're not just coming up so steep, we're kind of coming up through the hill. And by the time we get back to right about here, we're back on the natural grade. If you've ever been on the property, once you get to the top of the hill, it's a beautiful, flat, meandering road.
But as we know too, like development of road is shown as a 24-foot wide road plus your swales on both sides, the level of
Yeah,
impact.
that's the travel surface, 100%. And like we have designed well beyond just like taking a magic marker and being like, that's the road. Like
Sure.
we have grades, we have ditches, final grade, clearing limits, stormwater collection,
Erosion control.
the whole deal.
Thank you. Do we have to have any more public comment?
Let's see, nobody's got their hand up. If anybody in the public has a question or a comment, please raise your hand.
There is a chat in there.
There is a chat. I saw that.
There's a hand up.
Okay, I'm gonna bring in Jesse.
Thanks. No, I just wanted to make sure you saw my chat. I just wanted to make sure that as a neighboring landowner wanted to make sure I had interested party status going forward.
Yep, you are. Yep,
Thank you.
yep, thank you.
Can I ask where Jesse?
Can we ask where Jesse is as a neighbor?
You said he was in the,
I know, can we ask whereabouts?
Put it in the chat, but
91 Governor Peck.
Sounds like us.
91.
No, it's.
Oh, sorry, 55 Burn Bank.
Oh,
Fernbank.
Fernbank, okay.
It's right there.
That's that new road right across the street.
Oh. 55.
That part of Wesley Grove's
Yes.
property. Thank you.
any other questions from the board?
No.
Are we going to continue this then?
Yeah, we're going to continue the hearing. The next available date is March 8th. Then we have a scheduled hearing. I guess the big thing is making sure that we have a quorum. So I assume, that Ben, will you be here? On the
Ben,
8th?
are you good on the 8th?
Let me do a quick check, my calendar. Yes, I am showing available.
Now you're booked. And anybody in the public, you are now duly warned that this will continue to March 8th.
We need to vote on it.
Yeah, I guess why don't you make a motion to continue?
I'll make a motion to continue to March 8th.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 As a point of order, Chris, when do you think we as the party will know where everyone has landed on the 13 versus 9 versus density bonus so that we can tailor a full design for you folks for the 8th? That's coming up quick.
Usually the boards, we're probably going to go into deliberative, and I would think that if we get something voted out, essentially what you're looking for is a straw poll.
Yes, please.
With them sort of feeling what they're comfortable with, and I would assume that would be able to be expressed probably no later than the beginning of next week.
Okay. If that's doable, that would be very appreciated. Thank you. Do you need anything? I gave you the paper copy, the large
I
size.
said it right there for
Oh,
you.
okay.
Yeah.
Get out of your way.
All right, thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, thank you. Minutes from January 25th.
I just,
Here, so I don't feel comfortable voting on them.
I reviewed them. I know as a member, I was also not part of the meeting. I just noticed that there was two members of my party were not accounted for in the
On the
public role. Ed and Joanne were not accounted for.
Okay.
You were not.
I was on
This is here.
I don't know if my name was considered a member of the public in the minutes, but I know that Ed and Joanne were here, members of my family, but I did not see them on the roll call.
I'm sorry, can we do this? Hold off approving this to the next meeting, so I get a chance to look at it.
Sure. that seems to be, I'm going to stop the recording.
Yes.